Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to the Franchise Frontier podcast. On today's episode, we have Tom Burrell with Mighty Dog Roofing, is located in Benton Harbor, Michigan. So, welcome, Tom.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure to have you. What we're going to do today is kind of just talk to Tom a little bit about Tom's business, franchising in general, things that he loved, things that he wished he would have done differently, things that he would do differently. So we're just going to dive right in a little bit. Tom, just kind of let's get to know you a little bit. Let's understand your journey a little bit. Kind of what inspired you to become a business owner, and why did you choose? Let's do that part first, and then we'll figure out why you chose Mighty Dog Roofing. So
Sure.
what inspired you to become a business owner?
I appreciate the question, Dave. I've described this to many people over the years. I spent 30 plus years in corporate America as a sourcing and supply chain executive. And in my childhood and upbringing, I've always described the household as a blue collar entrepreneurial farm family. Hard work, accountability being at the crux of it. My father was a tool and die maker for 43 years. He was a farmer. He was also a brick mason. He worked hard. My mother ran an art business, and she was an art teacher successfully for many, many years as well. So, hard work, accountability, and a spirit of doing things on your own is big time in family upbringing. I got married young. Our entire marriage up through 25 of our 28 years as of last weekend. We've talked about doing a family business, all coming through corporate America. My daughter, Katie, who's not here with me today, is my partner at Mighty Dog in Benton Harbor, Michigan. She has been around that as well. Second half of my career came along. We spent about 3 years researching various different business models, everything from brick and mortar to retail to new startups to many others. The theme of home services just kept coming around and around and around in that 3 year period. And as we were looking at that, we liked the idea of franchising. Plan for me, myself, was to be semi-absentee and then move into a full-time role as we got the business up and running. I'm pleased to say that just happened officially 3 weeks ago. As we've been through that journey, that's a little bit of the why. We're living the American dream, father-daughter, running a local business here in Benton Harbor. So,
Congratulations on that. Sounds like it
thank
would
you.
be, it's not always probably home services that you think to, you're like, oh, my daughter would probably love to do this. So I think
Yeah.
that also, I did a show a couple weeks ago about women in franchising too. I think that there's a lot of things about that are attractive. I think there are a lot of things about that are attractive to people in the community, especially.
Yeah.
So, going back to that, so as when we talk about home service businesses, you mentioned that you had looked at a plethora. Kind of
Yeah.
what was it about the brand or the system that made you lock in with Horsepower and Mighty Dog Roofing?
Um, I think it was a combination of things. We liked the breakdown and structure of what we felt we could bring with a marketing solution to gain presence and then earn trust and relationships for real. We're in a market where it's a collection of small towns. The largest town in the overall territory we serve is 14,000 people. So, it really is about earning relationships and such. And when we saw the value system in Mighty Dog, the people involved, people at Horsepower, a lot of common values that we saw that connected into, honestly, a value and vision statement we wrote before we even thought roofing. We haven't changed it. If anything, it's building our level of resolve in it. So we felt like by way of match of people was probably the most important element that we
That's
had.
incredible. I think that, there's a lot to be said about being able to put together a value and vision statement early and then finding the pieces that fit that versus the other direction. So I think that's incredible.
Yeah, thank you.
When you think back to your first year in business, right? And let's add the front part of that a little bit. Let's talk about it in twofold. Let's talk about it, the process through onboarding, let's talk about that, starting the business. And then once your doors open that first year, what are some things that, some of the biggest challenges or surprises that you guys came across?
Yeah, great question, Dave. To try to make it a little more generic outside of the state of Michigan, there are some states that have very stringent business license requirements. So for us, we were all in. We did the research. We knew we needed, a residential builder's license here in the state. The requirements to get it are very high. We accounted for time and ramp up to open with that cost. For us, for sure, the biggest unknown was we couldn't predict, but 80% of everyone that reviews applications for the state license stopped working for the state of Michigan. We were on hold for 6 months after we invested in horsepower and Mighty Dog. I would have definitely got my business license first before we would have done that. That cost us over $50,000 in just all kinds of expenses with offices, onboarding, payroll, you name it, buying trucks and all that stuff. So it was dearly costly to us in the business plan and really put a lot more pressure on the focus to generate cash once the door opened. Huge, huge thing I would do over. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that what that comes down to again is, I know that as you work through the onboarding process, the business process, I think that probably that might be one of the things that's overlooked the most, right? When you talk about, do your due diligence in your market, figure out
Exactly.
what happens in your market. Because again, when you're a franchisor and you're talking through things that could happen in Michigan and in California and, all the places that could happen, there are little nuances that I think that you have to go out and really shake the trees to find the things that you need to do that are going to help you run your business. I think now, as we move forward, obviously anybody that, that's probably something that has went into onboarding that's now a big deal, right? Make sure that you're doing this in the right way.
Yeah, and we're happy to share it openly and transparently. I had to benefit. My oldest brother lives in our neighboring state, Indiana. He opened a microbrewery right about the same time period, and different way, but similar problems. Getting his liquor licenses, all of his equipment. He was sitting in a big 6-figure investment, and he too had to wait. But in his case, he waited 6 years, or I'm sorry, 2 years. I had to wait 6 months. So
okay,
yeah,
I
really,
thought you were going to say
we
6
had
years.
at least
6
somebody
years
to
is a
kind of
month.
lean on. But I think something him and I realized as we were talking, coming through completely different experiences, was once you make that commitment, you're in.
Correct.
So it's still up to you, regardless of circumstances. And focusing to move forward. I think thanks to my daughter Katie, in those days when I was like, I don't even know why we're doing this. She's the one that really said, "No, Dad, we got to make it happen. We committed to
Right.
making an impact here with this business in the community." So
That's incredible.
yeah.
So when you look now that you're up and running, you've gotten through those things, right? Are there
Yep.
any speed bumps, we'll call them,
Oh yeah.
roads that, things that you wanted to work through that kind of caught you off guard, that surprised you or challenged you in just opening the business, running the business in that first year? We're going to get to day-to-day operations, but just in terms of looking back in a snapshot, right? Or some things that you go, this was a challenge for us, but this is how we got over it.
Yeah, for sure. I think lesson one for us, you hear it all the time from many leaders and many organizations worldwide. It's right people, right roles. So we thought we got interviewed, even though we hired too early. Did all the training. Good people, just not quite gonna, fit the mix. They in those cases they chose to move on. I mean, it wasn't a combative split or anything like that. We don't believe in that in our culture, but for sure, right people, right roles, and really coming to that vision, working with with ways that represent us and what we want to do with this business. So for us, it's very personal. It's relationship based, and so right person, right role is definitely, I think, the first lesson we learned. Right.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you probably have gone a little bit into traction and right person, right seat, right?
We
That's
tried
obviously a
to.
thing that
Yeah.
you you pay attention to it and it feels right. And sometimes we obviously hire, with emotion or need or want,
Sure.
at a time where to your point, I think it's important that, when you hire the right person or when you train the right person to be what you're looking for that role to be, it's much more successful than when you're hoping that you're not seeing something that possibly was a red flag. Don't want to call it a
Yeah.
red flag, but you know what I mean in terms of things that you well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have overlooked this and I shouldn't have overlooked that. I think that there's a
Yeah.
lot of that.
Right.
And I think that that comes back to your point, that comes back to I'm a first time roofing business owner.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. And I think, it's easy to get caught up in circumstances. I inherently believe 99.9% of every human being on this planet believes in doing good. So, it's building upon that. But, as a small business, especially starting up, even with structure, with support, with coaching, you know, resource play is small. So any gap in the business, whether you're semi-absentee like I was until recent, um, or all in on day one and doing it all yourself as a single man band or single woman band, there's going to be gaps. And so I think that's another thing. Um, I don't want to say we weren't anticipating it, but when it happens, it's there's a few moments where you're like, gee, I wish I was at home right now, no different than anybody else, but greatness in your vision, I believe, comes by way of what you do when others aren't around. And I deeply believe that. So staying committed to where we see the vision of our business moving forward, things are getting better, and you got to focus on where progress is versus, running the risk of saying, gosh, those roadblocks and obstacles just are beating me down. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
I'm a little bit intrigued. And so I have to ask, how difficult was it for you and your daughter to build that vision together, being father daughter?
yeah,
Is it, obviously there's a lot that goes into it when it comes to what you've done in business. There's obviously a lot that comes into play of what she's done. How difficult was it for you guys to build that vision where you both felt strongly that, I'm sure there's parts of it where you're holding up one part of it and she's holding up one part of it, but at the
yeah.
same time, how difficult was it, if at all, for you guys to come up and say, "Hey, let's put together a vision. Let's sit down.
Mhm.
Let's hash it out because this is what we're going to go by."
Yeah, it was definitely difficult. I mean, like I've had the benefit of working in a lot of large Fortune 50 companies, right? A vision takes time. So I mentioned 3 years for us on the search. Part of I think a majority of that 3 year period was creating that. We kept looking at different businesses, not realizing, but following a vision based statement. And as we did at one point in time in the home services model, we actually drew a picture of a house, a lawn, a driveway, all the different elements. She came up in the cleaning business for quite a few years before we got started. And what we started realizing is that's where the home services thing. And as we looked at the house, we looked at the roof. And we weren't even thinking roofing, but we were thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And actualizing being at the top as to where true needs at the base of the pyramid. And so house, roof, and base. And what literally drew an arrow on a notepad, through a series of different meetings. And it was like, you're always going to be okay if you have a what? A roof
Rough,
over your head.
right?
And it just jumped off the page. And about that time, our franchise placement coach pointed out this thing called Mighty Dog. And it was, we had 8, I think maybe top 10 or something we were still looking at. Mighty Dog's like number 4 or number 5. And it never really changed, but it never went away.
Right.
So after iterating around some of that and realizing the vision was already created with that arrow, and we actually define that much differently than just that. That's what led to the idea of our vision. Then we start saying, wait a minute, we need to take a closer look at this roofing thing. And so that's when we started to realize it became a better match to the vision. For us, it was all about people. It's like, look, we're going to come to Omaha, and if we like everybody, we're in. If we don't,
And
we'll
hey,
go
Mighty
process
Dog,
and
it's a
move on.
man's best friend, right? The mascot's a man's best friend.
Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
incredible. I think that there's a lot of amazing value in that answer to that, because I think that a lot of times when you aspire to own a business, you want to figure out what's going to make me the most money.
Sure.
And it's important to know that what you can be passionate about, what you can have a vision statement about, what you can lean on, and what you can carry as a business owner is really what's going to give you the most fulfillment in whatever
Yeah.
way that is.
You're absolutely right. And I view the team in Omaha as an extension of us. When we're talking in small communities, or even with our team members, we're part of something bigger. So we can bring something bigger at scale right here at home for you, the homeowner. I mean, I say that all the time personally on sales calls, and then we explain why. Insurance issue, we have a full supplement team, back office, behind the scenes, to ensure you're okay. If we're talking product, I've got a relationship with Owens Corning at a level where they audit our installs for you, the homeowner. I want accountability. Not just me as a construction guy standing here. We follow these certain standards, right? It's important that people see there's some accountability in it. So we've learned by way of all these types of connections in the system, hopefully that, helps go into the why, when we're hitting our sales process, and then ultimately when we execute and, go after the review. So,
And I think there's a lot to be said about those vendor partnerships and working side
absolutely.
by side. I think that when you look at those vendor partnerships, there's just a difference in when you're part of a franchise system that has incredible vendor partnerships versus when you're doing a great job. You're still doing a
Yeah,
great job and you're still selling, for example, Owens Corning. There is a difference. It's unfortunate,
yeah,
but it's going to take that common roofer a long time to be able to get to the status that you are at Mighty Dog Roofing.
yeah,
So
exactly.
that's
You're
incredible.
absolutely right. And, we see that in so many different ways. And, organizations are always going to grow and evolve and things, but at the core of it, it's about people, and we enjoy the people side of it a lot. Love being engaged with the homeowners, even the ones that are a little more challenging. I tell guys, I said, look, we're dogs. This is what I tell the team once in a while. We're dogs. You do a good job, good boy, you get a treat. Good girl, you get a treat. You do a bad job, and they're on you. You're still a dog, and when they come home, you're still happy to see them no matter what.
No
You're
doubt
going to
about
do the right thing, because the faithfulness of the dog is where we try to like metaphorically connect what we really want to be all about, right? So even the angry customer, we try not to let that influence a decision, getting a perfect install. Maybe somebody saying something over one of the guy's shoulders, but important to think about that for us big time. So
it. Yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome. So now you've transitioned a little bit from being
yeah.
semi-involved into being in it. For you right now, describe a typical day in the life of a business
Ooh.
owner.
I think we had so many unforeseen circumstances outside of norm in year one. In addition to the delay with business startup, we had a lightning strike and a family fire. That particular storm fell just outside of our territory, drove to allocations of product. The crew found out. We lost the crew 3 months after we opened. Had to completely redo the entire operation. People don't write that into a script in life. Um, we had to make some tough calls. I was semi-absentee, working 80-hour weeks in corporate America. The question was simple. Like, look, I either get out and sell, or we can just shut down. So, thankfully, I wound up getting much more immersed into business than we ever dreamed. And it's really helped us understand, I think, where we're now positioned to drive the business to next scale level. Rather than working on the business, fortunately and unfortunately, I wound up working way more heavily in the business. And so I think that's given Kate and I a chance now to think about, where do we really want to drive it? How do we want to drive it? We definitely have a vision of growth, but we want to grow in a trust driven, value based way rather than just grow and get the numbers. So,
And so, with that being said, so now you're working in the business and on the
yeah,
business. You're working in
yep,
business the whole time.
yeah.
What are some parts of the job that you find most rewarding?
For us, I don't want to just say for me in particular, but since I'm here on the call, I think it's the times when you truly know you help someone. We had the privilege of doing a radio and podcast here in our local market not too long ago. The stories where maybe the solution isn't even Mighty Dog. Somebody truly needs help. They don't know who to get to. Maybe it's a different service. Maybe it's, somebody in, we got some impoverished areas in our local market. Getting somebody to somebody that can help them with heating bills or whatever the case is. So we network hard to help people. Um, I want to say the most meaningful came off the fire. We actually lost a sale. We could not get to that customer. Did not see them for a year. Ironically, a year later, 2024, another storm hit, but hit their house. A person I'd been networking with to help called me. It was a Friday night. It was late. It comes down to what you want to get and how you want to help. But, we do respond in storm market. So 9 p.m., we were at that homeowner's house. She said, I know you. I said, man, your name is so familiar. It was the customer we lost. We lost a small skylight project with her. Ironically, probably the most meaningful job we've done so far. They already had a roofer, obviously. The storm hit. The roofer had already patched their roof, and she asked me to go ahead and give her a quote. 24 hours later, we won her roof, and we won that customer back. And so for me, it kind of brings it full circle versus the individual examples where, maybe we got somebody plugged into the right assistance program, or, we solved a technical need, or, there's all financial needs. We'll solve anything for anybody. But to me, that one wound up being the one that said, based on the feedback she was hearing and how we're doing work in the market, it's the only reason she considered. And then she realized it was us. And it was like, oh my God, it's a perfect story. So I like to tell that one a little bit, rather than, multiple things. But the meaning for us is where we get to help people without even expecting when it's going to show up. And who would know it would have showed up with a customer that we left hanging. So,
Do you feel, when we talk about home services, we talk about there's times where it could come off as a little bit unsophisticated. And then going back to your point, I think when especially in roofing, we know that everybody thinks roofers are terrible. They're the least trusted. They're the least trusted home service brand there is.
Yeah.
Do you feel like with your vision, with what you're trying to do within the community, and the way that you're treating people is literally the lifeblood of what you're trying to do in your business, right? That example that you just gave, whether you lost the business or didn't, you obviously treated the customer correctly to be able to go back into their home.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd maybe tie it together this way for you, Dave. The vision statement came early. The mission statement has gotten honed. When we were meeting Mighty Dog and realizing that position you just mentioned on least trusted home service, Better Business Bureau shows a compelling data point. 2/3 of all roofers in this country are not trusted. So as we saw that's actually what convinced us that it needed to be roofing. We want to change the 68%. And we tell homeowners this every single day. So the actions that we need to be taking have to just scream that no matter what. We do a few other things to hold us accountable in our vision, which is improve value to the homeowner and the community. There's other parts of the vision. But on the community aspect, we make a donation to a few different charities of homeowners' choice after the install. We don't tell the homeowner these things, but our production manager presents that to them on behalf of our business. Everything we build into what we do is to do those things end to end. So our mission is to change the 68. And we follow up, right? We got watchdog maintenance. We're there every year for 5 years. We've got a lot of different pieces of the equation, including the tech we're using to drive that picture. So for us, it really truly is about changing the 68. How we change it's where the vision comes in.
That's incredible.
And what holds us on track. So I got to tell you, when we got in trouble and there's not enough money in the account, and you said you were going to donate for every roof you installed, and it's the night to write the check, you going to write it?
Yeah, you got to.
And we had to write the check, right? Nobody else would have known. But, in those cases, then, as time goes by, the thank you cards go out deliberately after we do those things on behalf of the team, on behalf of the charity. There's just a multiple different levers like that we pull to try to build it into that picture and drive the culture as we grow the business. So
that's awesome. So within that, right, the second part of that is, what are some things in the day-to-day that keeps you on your toes, right? How do you balance working in the business for, like you said, you worked in the business, on the business, over the business, all those things. What are some things that keep you on your toes a little bit?
I think, there's an element of chaos in roofing for sure. We knew it coming in. I grew up in and around construction a little bit too. As I mentioned, my dad was a brick mason. I was on a lot of job sites. worked in commercial plumbing in college, so it wasn't new to me to see the unexpected in a construction environment. But I think in our case, competency is really what it comes down to. The marketing model, all the training there was fantastic early on. I think learning product, where are trade-offs with product? How do you pull the resources from the supply base to really help you know, when do I do this instead of doing that? And is that going to drive better benefit for a better outcome? Maybe by profit, maybe by performance to the customer. Hopefully it's a combination of both, right? So over time, we've continued to hone in on that. I think competency, to answer your question in general, really becomes the key. We do a series of strategy reviews at the end of every year, pull our customer feedback, pull our sales, where's our pain points? What's the supply base telling us? What's our subcontractors telling us? What are we telling ourselves? And so, we plot that all out. This year, we actually build a skill wheel on our product. We say, okay, the customer sees us as an expert. Well, what's the data tell us? And in some cases, we are definitely not an expert. So how do we improve competency in that to get next level so we can stay on our journey to drive that value? So that's what we're into now. To answer your question, we then use that obviously to set priorities for training, better awareness, improving our quote templates, our estimates, responses, whatever it takes. So, but we do try to prioritize it that way at this point.
Well, it definitely sounds like you're going to do whatever you can do to not only build that business, but to really highlight that customer experience.
Yeah, that's really what we're after, right? I hate to sound prideful, but 75% of our business last year was driven organically from referrals. So we're hearing the customers telling us they want more of that. So, now we feel like we're better poised for growth. So, we're looking to do more of the traditional marketing levers to regain and drive growth, outside of, we'll call it the core network, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, on the Franchise Frontier podcast, we hear a lot about customer journey, right? Customer journey. Okay. We always hear about customer experience. How do you feel like your location and even Mighty Dog Roofing in general is doing to really up the game of that experience?
Oh man, great question. I don't know if I've given that enough thought. I mean, we think about it every day in our market, but as it relates to overall Mighty Dog,
well, just touch on it for your own market.
Yeah, I think for our own market, for sure, we hear it all the time. The feedback we hear, so-and-so said, call you. Well, we have to talk to you. You're going to be honest and give us the right answer. Can you just come and spend some time with me on X? Sometimes it has nothing to do with roofing. I just went and looked at a huge church that needs a bunch of foundational work, for example, and plugged them into a general contractor that's reputable. But so we get into all kinds of things like that, and I think it's the non-measurables sometimes, but it's like, what's the frequency of those types of contacts that are happening? And then, it's all of a sudden, so-and-so said call, they sent me a thing on Facebook. You took care of them, did an amazing job. We want you. And, those are fun. It's almost like,
absolutely,
when the estimate's ready, tell me when I can get started. And I'm like, I haven't even given you a price yet. And so that's what tells us it's working, right? So
my next question would be, is that staple? Is that one of the things that you have to think about when you're talking about right person, right seat? Because again, that person might be a great salesperson, they might be a great general manager, whatever that might be, a product manager, but at the same time, they also have to be able to give an incredible customer experience if that's what you're doing at your location.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So I think that's where we continue to look at handoffs within our process and our personnel as we come, this way from left to right, facing you, through the process, the 5 steps in sales and executing, and then following up every year for 5 years when we install. So there's tons of opportunities for touch points to check in and get the feedback. And I think we need to continue to see where next steps are in the overall process to continue to improve on it. The better we do that, the more clear roles will become, the more clear next priorities are to work on. So
absolutely. So now when it comes down to if you're talking to an inspiring business owner, right? What advice would you give someone considering becoming a business owner?
I think about that one all the time. I'd say, make sure you feel confident your house is in order. And I'll let you define that as your house if you're a listener, because, my house literally caught on fire. My family was completely disrupted coming through, post first year in a startup. It just, I can't describe how difficult it was on us. I'm thinking about writing a story about it someday. It was unbelievably bad. So I think, when I say get your house in order, make sure, your significant are truly aligned, because things like this in life can happen at any moment. And if you're going to make a commitment as a business owner, my belief, Katie's belief, we're making a commitment to our local economy. And so be prepared, right? That way, if something does go wrong, how deep is your level of resolve and perseverance to deal with something, whether you're a victim or not. I mean, we could cry victim, or we could just focus on winning. We literally sold a roof while there was smoke and firemen working on my house. It just,
Incredible.
so there's times when, the mindset, I think, is what we hear a lot of times. If I remember when we were first getting into this, mindset really is key. And I think having an awareness of what's truly happening, is it trending? You just got to hang in there. Is it a mindset that's just, hey, something just went wrong? Or is it a mindset that, hey, there's all these other wonderful things that are still telling us it can go right?
Right.
And so we hang our hat on that. We choose to do that. This year is going to be a turning point for us. We believe it has to be on our profitability goals, and we think we're on track for that. So we'll let time tell. We got a couple years of experience now. We've built the budget with a lot more flexibility in it. It helps to have a block of business to do that with. But that way, if we do need to scale, we can hold off on some investments and delay them if growth isn't coming at the pace that we desire. So
Understood. And so for in that regard, what are some traits, like if you were building a creative player, we'll call it, right? A creative business owner, what are some traits or skills that you think are essential for running a successful business? You've touched on a few, but
yeah,
if you had to wrap it around a bow.
um, I think people is the key. I mean, no matter what we do in this world, business ownership, working in an organization, volunteering somewhere, everything's about people. I believe this whole world is just one big village, and so yeah, it truly comes down to, I think, people. The passion for what you set about the mission to be. Whether it's purely a transactional view or not, you're into it that way. That's great. I have no problems with that. I'm not. We'll trust the profits are going to come, with a long term approach. We have the ability and the flexibility in the system to do that at Mighty Dog. That's what's pretty cool. And that's the route we chose and compare. So I think the passion for the direction you choose and how you want to take it is probably the next thing we look for. And then the fit and the culture that you want. As a business owner, whether you're directly involved or not, you're still a key player in setting the culture that everybody else is going to wind up falling into. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So if you had the opportunity to look at a crystal ball
Yeah.
and look back, not forward, but look back.
Okay.
If you had to start over, what would you do differently to prepare for owning your own business? And the second part of that, I know we talked about this with the licensing and those type of things. What would you do differently to prepare for owning your own business? And what's one lesson, or call it a mistake, in your experience that you think every business owner should hear?
Ooh, just one?
Just one.
um, I'd say fear. We all inherently have some level of fear or concern that's probably going to hold us back. I think in my case, we could have financed the business a little bit differently, and I could have went full time much more quickly, which may have driven a lot less stress at a time in our lives in the business and outside of the business than we ever would have dreamed we had to go through. But we were in that point. I'm going to be honest. There's several months in the past. I don't remember. I mean, for sure 23, 24. There's several months in there I do not remember at all. I inspected roofs with a headlight in the dark and won them. But we had to do it for the business, So just to give examples, the workday was not normal. So for me, I think it's fear. We set about establishing the business the way we did, semi-absentee. Let's get it to scale, and then I go full time, and it was still the fear of letting go of something I've done hopefully well for 30 some odd years, and venturing into something brand new. So in other words, looking back in that crystal ball, Dave, probably have done it faster. Yeah.
Would have done it faster. That's
Yeah.
an interesting insight, because I would imagine that a lot of people would say, slow down, take your time. But I think that, to your point, everybody's different.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
You would have, looking back on it, if somebody would have said your house is going to catch on fire, you might not have started a roofing business right then.
Yeah, exactly. You're
There's
absolutely
so many
right.
things in the
Yeah.
world and in the day to day that
Yeah.
we can't plan for, right? So
No,
that's
you're absolutely right. But I think also, in terms of the impact with my wife and I, the moments when I just absolutely could not be available, not present as a husband and father. And the question is, do you just want to let it burn, literally, figuratively, or are you going to make this happen so that you can truly get to what we all dreamed of having the opportunity to do? So why I say faster, had I just went for it, probably would have had a little more free time over that year and a half time period that I'll never get back. Right. So I don't regret it, but we learn by doing. I deeply believe that. And it's a great question you're asking. I'm not sure I really thought about it until
no,
you
that's
just
good. And I think, to be honest with you, if anything, it hopefully is helping you reflect a little bit and have
oh sure.
some more insight on it.
Yeah.
I ran through that a little bit when I was coaching football. I thought that you couldn't have tell me that I wasn't living my best life and things were good. And then I blinked my eyes and realized I watched my son play football one time.
Wow.
And I thought to myself, like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah.
What, and again, you do the best you can, right? Like the time that you
Exactly.
missed in that year with your family, you're doing the best you can, and they know you're doing the best you can.
Yeah.
And all you can do is keep pushing forward, because again, you're doing it for them, you're doing it for you. And so at the end of the day, it's a noble thing.
Yeah.
And I would tell people, don't beat yourself up, but it's a good way to think about it too, where it's like
Yeah.
sometimes the delay of thinking and planning for what it's supposed to be, it's never going to be that.
Yeah.
You just
Exactly.
have to go.
Exactly. Yeah. My franchise business coach helped us. He gave me like a 2-pager to deal with fear. And I got to know him fairly well coming through the initial process. Kate and I spent a lot of time with him, and we did a lot of debriefs with my wife as well. And it kind of came back to kind of a theme like you're touching on a little bit. And it's like, is there any other reason to be holding back? And it's like, to be brutally honest, fear. And it's
Yeah,
like, once I saw him break that down in a structured, like, 1-page diagram, I'm like, oh my God, he's so right. And then here we are, we still enter into the business, still afraid to let go. And so I appreciate your question a lot. I'll definitely share that at home tonight.
and the things that you went through, I could print off 75 diagrams, and those things
Yeah.
are never going to be. Oh,
Yeah.
where's the diagram that says my roof is going to catch on fire of my house? Is that it? Oh, that's not, we
Yeah.
don't have, you just never know.
No, you're
No.
absolutely right. But by way of grace, we roofed my house,
Hey,
got paid for it, and that payment literally kept business open for
that's a
another
good
month
thing.
and a half.
That's a great thing.
You
So
just
now,
never know how stuff connects. It's great.
exactly. So now the other side
Yeah,
of the crystal ball, long-term vision. What's
sure.
next for you? Do you see yourself scaling to more locations, focus on perfecting your current operations? What's next for you guys?
Great question. Or I want to say our strategic plan. We first met Josh Skolnick. We boiled it down more on an executive level, and so to put it in numbers, 6 businesses, 5 years, 12 million revenue. That's still the goal. Now the time bound portion of the goal has shifted a little. We kind of felt like we lost a year, but our goal is to still grow this business to 6 businesses and 12 million. Our definition is one territory is one business. So at first, more mighty dog, more horsepower. We haven't answered that yet. But in the strategic sessions we do annually, we took a really hard look at it this year. We feel like there's still enough market share to grow the existing business fairly well without yet being ready to expand. So crawl, walk, run, review those capabilities, before we just go run down the hill, add more territory, drive more reputation, and then sacrifice that at the expense of what we feel pretty blessed we've earned so far. So long term, definitely the goal has not changed. Um, I think how we go about getting the goal might need to shift a little bit from a timing standpoint, but honestly, not much. So
That's awesome. I think, to go back to your point about how you think you almost there's a part of you that thinks you might have wasted a year, right?
yeah,
Don't be so difficult on yourself. I think that there's times that,
yeah,
that those things are going to happen in business. Those things are going to happen in life,
exactly.
and that those lessons that you learned from that thing or those group of things are going to bring you more value another time, right? To your point, your house had this happen. Next thing you know, another storm comes through. It's
Mhm.
much easier to be a salesperson in the roofing space and show empathy
Yeah,
towards someone who's doing it because you've done it. I've been through this. I know what
yeah,
you're feeling. Let me tell you, we're going to take care of this for you, and be able to lower that person's
yeah.
level of, so all those things are very important. So hats off to you for that in general, in terms of where you guys
I
are going for your business as
thank you, and
well.
I appreciate the fact you see that. I don't think we would have deeply understood it. You obviously do. Um, the empathy with the customer is very real, and going through an insurance process that especially did not go well in our case, um, helped us understand how important it is to feel helpless. The fire is a fire. Whatever's going to burn's already on fire.
Right.
But what happens after is so much out of a homeowner's control, and somebody that can help advocate or at least understand and just take that moment to where you're not just going to turn and burn to go get one more roof. Um, Maybe all somebody needs to just feel enough confidence to ask the next level of questions. And in some cases, it has nothing to do with roofs. So, yeah, I really appreciate your comment a lot. It means a lot that you see it. So,
Yeah, I think that
speaking firsthand from going through it. Yeah.
I do think that there is a level of empathy that, there, you either are going to get it through personal experience,
Yeah.
or you're going to get it through helping somebody through that same experience
Yeah.
and knowing the
Yeah.
things that they're going through. But at the same time, like, it's not a turn and burn experience. They're not,
No,
I mean, no pun intended there, but they're
no,
not
no, you're
looking
right.
for somebody to just show up and fix it. They have to understand, like, there's a lot going on
Yeah.
in a disaster, right? In a
There really
disaster,
is.
there's a ton going on, right? When there's, and I would think that in roofing, the the most intricate part about roofing is anytime there's a problem with a roof, we feel like it's a disaster. It could be a leak, could be a shingle, could be whatever it is. Right
Mhm.
now, it's like you said, the roof over my head is leaking. I need this fixed.
No, you're right. And coming through our store market here, we had our first experience in 2024. It's a very small geographic area. And we learned quickly. And for me, being an owner and hearing some of the stories from other homeowners that, so you know what, now I remember your company. You bump into them at a store, for example, getting gas, whatever, and what, your guy was picking up, trees and stuff in my front yard. Was he really? Oh yeah, and it's like, hey guys, just go, and girls too, just go and help. Or another service provider that needed a 32-foot ladder. We just happen to have one. Hey, mine's 10 minutes away. Let me get it for you. Right? The
Yeah.
sense of community versus just thinking, hey, I'm here, just get what's mine. I got to tell you, those feel good when you hear stories about your people just doing what's right. You
I
know,
mean, I tell you, it's impressive. It's impressive.
so
It's impressive trait for you guys, and it does not surprise me that you're finding that niche for your business and that niche in your community. I think that, when you do good things happen, right? And
exactly,
it might not be at
exactly.
the pace that you want it to, but good
That's
things happen.
exactly right. That's
So,
exactly right.
one
Yeah,
more thing, and
sure.
then I'll let you go. Um, you know, how do you see the role of business owner evolving as the industry changes?
Um, that's a great question. I think the role of a business owner, um, man, business owner is such a broad term, right? Because how you can position yourself as a business owner and structuring your teams and things like that could all be different. But I definitely, being in commodities for many years, I do think that there's a need to have an awareness of scale that still connects in the market that you serve or markets that you serve. Is very essential. So as a leader, you know where talent needs to be developed for next steps before it occurs. There's always going to be changes in regulation, changes in availability, post-COVID supply chain, and doing that for 30 years. It's always been there, not just COVID, but now that people know that word, those things are very real. So to me as a business owner, having an awareness of where possible trends are coming into business, so that you can try to see some of the bigger 80,000 foot problems before they happen, I think is essential in my view. So.
Well, good, Tom. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you coming on the Franchise
Yeah.
Frontier podcast and giving us a ton of nuggets, to be honest with you, about business ownership, right people, right seat, right? The things
Yeah.
that you have, fear, those are all things that I think anybody who's looking to get into business at whatever level that is, or is even in a business currently, they're going through those emotions.
Yeah.
There's somebody in that seat that they know isn't right for the thing, and they don't know how to make that adjustment, and they carry that along, or they're just scared to take that leap. And so I think all those are great nuggets, and a great way to scale your business. We wish you nothing but the best,
Thank
and
you.
we look forward to having you on another one of our episodes in the future.
Okay, be my pleasure. So,
Appreciate you.
yeah, thank you.